On today's show, we've got the latest on Darius Garland, plus notes on the Cavs weekend games. That was, of course, headlined by Donovan Mitchell, again posting above 30 points. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. And that is PrizePicks, promo code Locked On.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs, the NBA for places like Diamond, UPROXX, and SB Nation Fear the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He's at Down Euclid and Fear the Sword. Evan, Cavs had a very busy weekend. So today's segment, we're going to open up with the latest on Darius Garland. Then we're getting into the Bulls game, and then we're going to go to the Wizards game from Sunday night, which was also the home opener. The Garland news is just sort of the most, I think, biggest kind of thing kind of going on right now in some ways. But Evan, you wanted a second here we're going to clear the runway for you, so to speak. So the floor is yours.
Well, first off, shout out to friend of the program, Danny Cunningham, and also friend of the program, Brittany Mollis, on getting engaged. Both just great guests. Look at Locked On Cavs. They're already together, but we'll just pretend we were in the match made in heaven for them. But also, just want to give a shout out to Andrew here. Met him down when I was on the floor tonight. Follow him on Twitter at Nation1Cavs. But called us both the GOATs, Chris, and I blushed a little bit when he said that. If again, I'll throw the picture. Clearly, blushing a little bit there. It's not just the rosy cheeks in general, but yeah, no, great guy. Great time talking with him, and we always appreciate fan love. Like we ran into a few folks actually tonight at the home opener, so it was nice to see some folks and. We always appreciate you listening, but rate us 5 stars, follow us on YouTube, all that jazz. So
yes, please do that. All right, let's get into Darius Garland. Darius Garland, according to JB Bickerstaff, is quote doing better. He wore sunglasses at the game on Sunday, so he was there. But
I morbidly told Chris their weekend at burning him just by posing him with sunglasses on. He's actually just not actually there. It's just a fake Darius Garland body double. But go ahead.
He, according to Jimmy Bickerstaff, like if his eye opens, like he can see, which sounds gnarly and kind of weird, but okay.
I really wish I could see what was underneath that lens. I'm morbidly curious.
I think everybody is, but basically what we know right now is that Garland is. They announced at a release last week that there's no structural damage. He visited with a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. He is with the team. He's not going to play. Chris Fruit of Cleveland.com had a report about this that they're maybe thinking Friday against Boston, which is obviously a big game. If not, it could be pushed to the weekend, which could be next Sunday at home against the New York Knicks. So, Evan, I think to link this in for me with the Sunday game, the home opener, which we'll talk about later, you could see like Donovan Mitchell was sensational in that game, obviously, but you can feel in watching that it's just like, man, Darius Garland would like the whole point of this is to pair them together, and this was sort of like a redux in some ways of Garland having to be hero last year, and Mitchell I think did it better in a lot of ways. But you clearly are just like it's you want to see these guys develop chemistry as fans of basketball. You want to see these guys start to figure stuff out, and that is what we're missing with no Garland. But it seems like this isn't going to be something that keeps him out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and I think, as you had noted, if the Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell, they'd be kind of swimming up creek without a paddle right now. It's certainly a different place to be in. Like you said, Donovan Mitchell is probably more equipped to do this because he's had to do it so much in Utah that I think asking him to do this for 5 or so games, possibly, just to carry the load on terms of playmaking and scoring and just everything in between, like it's nice, but like you said, yeah, it'd be nice if the Cavs had Darius Garland out there. Maybe this game doesn't go to overtime against Washington. Maybe they're able to close out the Bulls a little bit easier. Maybe they don't struggle against Toronto to open the season either. Like the Cavs could be 3-0 if Darius Garland didn't get poked in the eye by Gary Trent Jr. being kind of reckless on a play. But yeah, it's tough to see. I think it's good to have him around this environment. And I think the only positive I can glean from this is I asked Donovan Mitchell about a post game, like, you didn't play with Evan Mobley at all during the preseason. You're getting live ball reps with him right now. And like Donovan said, like, yeah, no, he's really good in the pick and roll. And this is a really good opportunity for us to get familiar. He's like, I think we're more than familiar with each other now. And he's just like, I think for us, and us as Donovan talked about the Cavs, he can unlock things offensively to kind of make things different and more versatile for the Cavs. And whether it's Darius at the ball, Donovan at the ball, or just Evan at the ball, and the two of them playing off of him, there's ways the Cavs can go about this. And I think just that's the only like golden opportunity here is like that Jared Allen, like your key offensive pieces next to Donovan Mitchell are kind of being forced to get familiar with him a lot sooner than they expected. So then you bring Garland back into the fold. Now you figure out the Garland-Mitchell equation, as you said, because you'd like to optimally have both of them on the floor together. But it's certainly going to make things a little bit more cohesive offensively when Darius does come back.
I think there's like a world too where you're just like, I want to see like what these lineups at the end of games could look like with Garland and him, and that's like really the thing I'm intrigued by, right? It's like I would like to see, I would like to see like, you know, would Jetty be kind of in some ways make sense as the third guy in those in some ways? Or like I think that's like an intriguing question just because he shot it so ridiculously well to start the season. LeVert has had some positive talk. We're gonna do a show on Tuesday all about the Cavs role guys, specifically LeVert and Osman and Okoro, and dive into kind of what we've seen from them so far ahead of the Cavs next game on Wednesday. But like LeVert is kind of interesting in some ways, and I'm curious just to see how this all is. Just with Garland, we'll see. I suspect like this is going to be a very cautious thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
there's no need to rush him if.
No, and he's like bleeding in from his eye, and like he's wearing sunglasses at a game, and like it's not exactly clear. Like, I mean, I hear the word eye laceration and read that phrase, and I'm like, that's gnarly. I don't know. Like, I have like no, because like we haven't seen the eye in all of the, and like we're not doctors on these things. It's like so hard to gauge on like what this injury sort of means. It's not like a sprained ankle or. It's just like such an uncommon occurrence that it makes it hard to sort of like, even when we get updates, even when they say what's going on and like he's fine. Like JB went out of his way to say that Bickerstaff is fine, really. Like Garland is fine otherwise, aside from the eye, like everything else is fine. It's just like the whole thing is just like you would hope he, like whenever this is normalized, like that's just kind of an interesting thing. And just like I'm just curious to see like how he's dealing with some of this instance right now, and like what he will like look like when he comes back.
Yeah, it is an interesting thought exercise overall. Like, what is Darius going to look like? What is this team going to look like on both ends of the floor? I think obviously it's at the top they're going to be a little bit easier, balanced offensively is the term I'm looking for here, just because you're not asking Donovan Mitchell to shoulder the entire load. And let's be frank, he has shouldered the entire load ever since Garland has gone down offensively, because Evan Mobley's still a little timid at times. I still think he's trying to find his footing out there just because like there's a new offensive hierarchy with Mitchell kind of leading the show here. Allen has been extremely consistent during this entire process. Like he's just the low maintenance star of this core four the Cavs have, and it's just now figuring out this balance, like you said. And I think it's going to be tricky. It's not going to be perfect. Like there's going to be nights, like Mitchell said tonight, like there's going to be nights where like the shots just don't fall and it's on them for losing it. Like I think just taking these small victories like you do tonight against the Wizards or against the Bulls on Saturday night as well. Like, those are just things you take. And to, like what I was saying before, like Garland, and in the Cavs case, like they don't have to rush him back as Mitchell kind of keeps us going, but you also don't want to burn Donovan Mitchell out too soon early into the season when he's still maybe trying to get his legs completely underneath him so he can finally find that rhythm and balance, and then kind of just throws everyone else for a loop when you bring Darius back into the fold. Yeah,
I mean, I think like maybe the biggest downside of all of this, I think, and you just hit on this, is that Mitchell played, I think, 45 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back in Game 3 of the season. Like that, like again, like you, in how competitive the East is going to be, how just hard it's going to be to maximize your season and get the wins you need. Like I get, like, and JB, like I said, it's like maybe I played him too much in times, whatever. Like you really need to kind of get these wins and start stacking them up. But like that's a lot of minutes. And like even just for Mitchell, like the burden of doing everything and like over time, like he will probably feel the benefit of having Garland with him. And like when they can kind of get fully in sync, it's that is when this Cavs team figures itself out. But they're 2-1 with Garland, A, having played a half, and B, being bad in that half. And like yes, they lost that game, but like they're 2-1 against two teams who I think come into the season in Chicago and Washington who have playoff aspirations. All right, after the break though, we are going to transition into talking about that Bulls game, which was a Donovan Mitchell showcase game, which every game so far seems to have been for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But first, going to tell everyone about our friends, PrizePicks, and you should know about everyone should know about PrizePicks at this point. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less their PrizePicks projection, you win. You can win up to 10 times on your money on any entry. It's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Eurobasketball, cricket, and more. That's a lot. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. It is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. It's that easy. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Okay, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast, I am Chris Manning. That man is Evan Dammarell. Let's go on to the Bulls game, Evan. I mean, I think the only place to really start with this is that Donovan Mitchell had 32 points, 10 of 19 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, 8 of 9 from the line. Like he has been, I think, maybe the Toronto, maybe not the Toronto game just because the Cavs lost and maybe Siakam ultimately or whatever. I think Mitchell has just so clearly within this Bulls game and into the Sunday Wizards game, just been the best player on the floor by like a wide margin for Cleveland so far this season.
No, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think just with how the Cavs are constructed too, like I said in the last second, Jarrett Allen is the most consistent of the bunch, I'd say. Like, yes, Mitchell has night in and night out for the first 3 games of the season been a cold stone killer for the Cavs, but like there's going to be nights the shots don't fall for him, or you're going to see games like, I believe either the Atlanta game or the Philly home game in the preseason where Donovan just has to like is in a complete shooting funk and the Cavs have to run a set play for him to kind of get him going in the second half. But there's going to be nights like that. But when it comes to Mobley or when it comes to Allen, like they're not going to have the ball in their hands more often than not. Like you're not going to see them initiating the offense. Like, yes, I know JB will encourage them to, but like on a possession-to-possession basis, you're not going to see either of those two initiate the offense. And that's just the refreshing with Donovan is like you put the ball in his hand and like you know he is walking a fine line of passing the ball and getting others involved or scoring. And I've been kind of tracking these metrics for the first 3 games, but like, because I am a firm believer that if the Cavs really want to like take this gear offense to another level, like when Darius sits, you let Donovan just cook and run point, and he's more or less scored or assisted on over 100 points in the first 3 games for the Cavs, which is absolutely bonkers to think about. And I don't know where they stand in terms of offensive rating overall. Like, I think it's mucky. I think there's a little bit of issues on some stuff because it's also just 3 games to track this stuff. But there's some tangible effect where, like, Donovan Mitchell is playing with a ton of energy, with a ton of gravity, with a ton of poise out there. And, like, he is more or less willing the Cavs to victory sometimes when you have, like, an inconsistent night for Evan Mobley against the Wizards, or you have Jarrett Allen, who is pretty reliant on a guard initiating the offense for him, or if you have Karis LeVert, who went 4-14 against Washington but was still able to crack double digits, or guys like Dean Wade or Jetty Osman coming like semi-reliable threats off the bench for you during this 3-game stretch so far. Like, there's small things you can see the Cavs are succeeding with, and it's a direct trickle-down effect from having Donovan Mitchell and just putting the ball in his hands. And, like, yeah, like you said, he has been, up to this point, the best player for the Cavs, and will likely continue to do so through the remainder of the season.
The Bulls game, just also I think for the Cavs is in a broader way, was of the two games this weekend the more kind of pillar to post dominant performance. Like they were much more in control of that game. Like yes, the Bulls pushed back times.
The first quarter, the Bulls hit the Cavs in the mouth kind of hard. They were down 21-9, I believe, and normally in the past, you'd see the Cavs kind of crawl into their shell and rely on defense to turn this into a stone fight. Instead, they kind of came out swinging back, and they fought the Bulls off and took advantage of the fact that Chicago was playing the second of a back-to-back and really just kind of put their foots on their throats throughout the game.
To the point where, like, DeRozan gets ejected in this game. The Cavs, like, as you alluded to, trying to start slow early, win the first quarter 34-25 ultimately, win the second 36-29. It's a 25-23 advantage for Chicago in the third. And then in the fourth, Cleveland just smacks down the Bulls 35-17 advantage in the fourth. In that fourth quarter, Mitchell only has 6. So it's not even like this is like Mitchell takeover in the way I think it was against the Wizards. You got 7 from LeVert. You got 4 from Robin Lopez. You got 2 from Howell Neto. You got 5 from Jetty. You got 3 from Isaiah Mobley and 3 from Lamar Stevens and 5 from Dean Wade. The last 3 guys in crunch time, not in real minutes. This became the last 4 minutes of this game were victory cigar minutes for the Cleveland Cavaliers when Isaiah Mobley comes in and makes a 3, and Dean Wade, who had not been in the rotation that night, gets minutes, and Lamar makes his first debut of the season and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
This what I mean when I say like they were more, I think, dominant. It's just like the Wizards game got very dicey late, which we'll talk about.
Yeah,
Mitchell bails them out. Mitchell bails them out in that game, and really played like just made some big shots, made some big plays against I think a pretty good Wizards defense. The Bulls game was like, okay, like we're playing the team in the second round of a back to back. It's Levine's debut, but I thought he looked for the most part pretty good and pretty explosive. But they were clearly just better than the Bulls, and I think they were clearly better than the Wizards as well in a lot of ways. It just kind of bared out that they win this game by 32.
Yeah,
32. I did math correctly there.
You did do math correctly there, but I will say it is a stark contrast because the Cavs took advantage and they didn't play down to their opponent. Like they could have really mucked this out with the Bulls, and the Bulls started showing that they were a little gassed. Like you said, yeah, Zach LaVine was incredible, but Pat Williams wasn't great. DeMar DeRozan had 13 points and 3 of 9 shooting. Like Ayo Dosunmu had 5 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists on 2 of 7 shooting. Like the Cavs kind of exploited some of the weaknesses around Chicago, and the fact that like they're a little tired, they're a little fatigued, and I don't think you see that last season. And more so in the Wizards game, the Cavs are in the same position as the Bulls. Like clearly, like you said, they played Donovan Mitchell 45 minutes against Washington in overtime. And they needed all 45 minutes from him. Like JB said that every shot that Donovan takes, like they weren't empty calories. Like everything he does on the floor has a purpose to it. And like you could see it against Chicago where he was getting everybody involved. He almost had a triple-double in about 35 minutes played. And then against Washington, like he more or less willed the Cavs to victory down the stretch because things got dicey. And like you said, the Wizards are good defensively. But more than that, the Cavs were just fatigued. They were showing signs of fatigue in that fourth quarter. Like you could clearly tell, like this was a Cavs team that was just in Chicago the night before. That our time change maybe has a little bit of an impact, but I don't know. I think this game against Chicago, like that was more of a statement game. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like if they didn't have Darius Garland on the floor, and this was the Cavs last year, I don't think they win against Chicago like they did, or they don't kind of gut check and win against Washington like they did in overtime if they were missing Darius Garland and also didn't have Donovan Mitchell.
I think the Bulls game felt more like something they might have won last year in some ways, just because the formula was like I could see like, if let's just assume like they don't make the trade and it's like those guys back on the roster and everything. I think there's like a world where like a lot of what worked in that game ultimately ends up working in the Bulls game. Like I think Garland maybe doesn't have some of the same issues he had against Toronto, and there's like a path there. I think the what Mitchell did in the Wizards game, which I think we'll dive into extreme detail on in segment 3, was just so like he has been so good without having to change what he has been. He is just being Donovan Mitchell and making really hard shots and playing at this high level and putting so much pressure on the defense. And it's unlocking things. Like it is unlocking Jetty Osman. It is unlocking
like Dean Wade.
It is unlocking new win, and it is like where Garland is really, really good at generating looks for Allen, and I think looks for Mobley and like bigs. Mitchell so far has just been juicing the wings to get open shots, and like LeVert is also playing better and stuff. But that's the other. That's just everything's gonna click. Evan, 2 last notes on the Bulls game.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Lopez makes a season debut. I thought played pretty well, like very much 3 outplayed Andre Drummond in the battle of backup centers. And which is a wild sentence to say. And then in the other part of it is that Karis LeVert again had he had I think 8 assists in the opener. I had the notes, I pulled this directly. He has in this game he has 8 assists and 2 turnovers, 3-6 from 3, only made 1 2-point shot. This is just like it was the second game in a row where he provided something positive without scoring, which is what they need, which what he needs to just do for this to kind of all work with him. And I haven't watched the game close enough to tell you like how to feel about this. I need to watch this one back because I watched this in a setting that was different than normal. Bickerstaff praised the job that LeVert did on DeMar DeRozan as well, and I thought that was just worth it. Bickerstaff kind of went out of his way to talk about that pregame on Sunday.
I mean, yeah, like we kind of had a little bit of an expectation or a premonition that LeVert would struggle a little bit with DeMar DeRozan or would struggle with Zach LaVine coming back. And yeah, Zach LaVine popped off in his return to the floor for the Bulls, but for the most part, they really did a good job containing DeMar DeRozan as a team. And I think a lot of credit does go to Karis LeVert because we didn't really see much of Isaac Okoro against the Bulls or in general on the floor. And I think if you're asking for somebody to step up and be your top perimeter defender, and he told me it was Karis LeVert, I'd raise an eyebrow, but he's played well enough. Like, he's not a stopper. He's not going to be like a ball hawk on defense, but he's playing well within Cleveland's system and giving effort. I think that's the most you can ask for him at this time, and the more comfortable he gets physically and the more comfortable he gets within just how Cleveland operates as a defensive team is going to just work out very nicely for LeVert and the Cavs together. And you saw it against DeRozan. Like, there's going to be nights like the opener against the Raptors and Pascal Siakam was just feasting on him. But there's also going to be nights like against this, like DeRozan, where he played pretty well at times.
Yes. All right. The passing stuff too is just. Let's see if this is real after like 20 games. But I'm intrigued.
But okay. These are the small footnotes we're taking. Like, people may roll their eyes when we say 15 to 20 games, but these are the small footnotes we're placing now to say, like, okay, is this a real thing 15 to 20 games from now? Because, like, these are what the Cavs are good at, this is what they're not good at, and then we figure out the next steps from there.
Yes. All right. After the break, we're going to come back. We are going to talk about the Wizards game where Mitchell was, again, really, really good. But first, let's tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for betting on football and the start of the new basketball season. Find out the latest player developments, team matchup, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis in every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, NBA, all of that stuff. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. For instance, Evan Mobley is at plus 600 to win Defensive Player of the Year. The Cavs over-under, meanwhile, is set at 48 this season. BetOnline, that is where the game starts. Go check them out today. They'll have odds this week for every Cavs game that comes up. They'll play the Celtics on Friday. Curious to see how much of an underdog the Cavs will be there. And if you're keeping track of this at home, last year the Cavs were very good against the spread. Just for the record, the Cavs were minus 3.5 favorites against the Wizards on Sunday. They covered that. Just keep if you're keeping track of that. The Cavs covered on Sunday. All right, back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast. I'm Chris. That's Evan.
What's up,
Evan? Let's just talk about Donovan Mitchell a little bit more because I think we need to just dive into how sensational he was on Sunday. 37. Really hit the what was ultimately the game-winning bucket on Sunday. I'm gonna read this tweet from Serena Winters. Only 3 players all time have scored 30-plus points in 3 straight games to start their career with the team. Glenn Robinson in 2002, 2003 with the Hawks. That was 3 straight games. Will Chamberlain, ever heard of him, with the Philadelphia Warriors in 1959, 1960 as a rookie. That was 8 straight games. and now Donovan Mitchell. That is bonkers. And Mitchell was every bit of what you'd expect out of him in this game. Just an utterly smooth, precise, explosive performance from him to make really tough shots when they needed him and figure it all out.
No, you're absolutely right. And another fun fact is the fact that Donovan Mitchell surpassed Austin Carr for the most points scored in their first 3 games with the team, which is kind of crazy because Mr. Cavalier himself, is a bit of a legend amongst the team, you know what I'm saying? But Donovan's just been incredible, and like I touched on in the last segment, and JB Bickerstaff touched on this too, like there is always something of purpose for what Donovan Mitchell is doing on the floor. Like, sure, he owned up to it. He said, like, he didn't have the best fourth quarter, and he missed that game-winning three-pointer to close things out. Like, he said, most nights I'm not going to go 12-29, and I've had worse fourth quarters than this, but I've also had better fourth quarters as well. Like, I think you saw a little bit of the fatigue and just how tired he was, especially because he played 35 minutes against Chicago the night before, and he was inching well past 40 minutes when it was crunch time in the fourth quarter. But he was able to gut check, dig deep, and carry the Cavs to victory. And it's not just that. It's the 37 points, and it's the 5 of 12 shooting from three-point range, but like, there's just some type of motor Donovan Mitchell has where, like, it really juices his team offensively, and you said it really well. Like, he is really looking to get the wing players involved. Like, Cedi Osman is finding a bit of a consistent groove with him. Dean Wade, when he's playing the 3 or the 4, is finding a bit of a consistent groove on the perimeter. Kevin Love was more effective against Chicago, but he was 1 of 4 from 3 against Washington. So, like, the Mitchell's three-point gravity is something you and I have touched on quite a bit. Like, you saw Garland playing off it, but you're now seeing, like, other role players play off it as well, where, like, defenses have to keep themselves honest when defending Mitchell, and then Mitchell and his teammates will just take advantage of that because it's going to be one guy sagging off any of those players I just mentioned.
Okay, there's a couple other small things I think we can hit from this one. The turnovers late were pretty bad.
Yeah, they were.
The go-ahead bucket Mitchell hit at 143 to put the Cavs up 2 and get the N1 was awesome. Then he gets the steal at 123. Osman finished in the break. LeVert is that connective pass in the middle of the floor. That puts them up 5, and they get an N1 there as well. Kyle Kuzma kind of went on a foul fest a little bit in overtime. Those are kind of the...
Yeah, shouts to the fans that were screaming at Kyle Kuzma on every possession down the stretch of the free throw line.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't like him because of the trolling last year, but after he hit that corner three-pointer
he's going to be very good for the Cavs as they're starting small forward, so... I'm manifesting this, by the way. I would love to watch it happen.
I just want to be the record. I said I pointed him out as a fit last
Chris
year.
Chris planted this seed in my head many moons ago, and it has... grown into a beautiful rose. He
would fit in a lot of ways. Other things from this game, I think like we kind of know the guys that Bickerstaff is going to play. Lopez plays in this game, made an insane circus shot, which just was wild to see. But like, Dean Wade plays in this game. Kevin Love plays. They go a full 10 guys deep in this game, but this leaves Lamar Stevens, Dylan Windler, who's hurt. The 2A guys, like we kind of know that like Lamar is out of the rotation. Neto's kind of like the 10th guy, but he just basically had a 2-minute cameo in the second half. So we kind of know like who the guys they're going to kind of bank on are after these opening 3 games, I think, which is kind of interesting.
It is interesting to think about like who JB Bickerstaff will turn to, because I, again, was asking him a while back, like, hey, you've always said you wanted to have one of Donovan or Darius on the floor. Is the plan for Evan or Jared as well? And he said, yeah, to an extent, but like they're always hoping to have 4 of their like 7 core guys on the floor at any time, and right now we know that's Mobley, Allen, Mitchell, Garland, and then it's LeVert, but just by minutes alone, Osman, and then probably Okoro and Wade is just like that's 9 there, but like Wade and Osman are probably like the outliers there, but then like Robin Lopez is getting consistent minutes now, and Kevin Love too. Kevin Love is in that group as well too. I forgot him, but it's an interesting balance. I think we're starting to see a little bit of how JB is showing his hand. I'm more curious to see what it looks like when Ricky Rubio comes back and just kind of what the player Ricky Rubio is, because that changes a lot of things, I think, for this bench rotation, because I think it goes from a core 7 to like a core 8 guys if Rubio is fully right and ready to go when he does play, because a lot of what made the Cavs successful last year was dynamic guard play from Rubio, and I think you're getting a lot of it from Mitchell. So if you get a modicum of what you had from Rubio last year, you have a strong Darius Garland return, you have Donovan Mitchell firing on all cylinders. Like the Cavs can really find a very healthy balance despite not having a lot of wing depth, which is a weird way to say like the Cavs are winning their way and they're finding ways to make a roster that does have some flaws to it seem a little more refined on the floor on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I think the other thing just to point out, this was a game that they won with like kind of, it was like not like they were 13 of 33 from three, so nearly 40% from three. Had a big free throw
isolation.
I mean, this is just, it was Mitchell ball in a lot of ways. 12 of 25 from the line versus 9 of 15 from the Wiz. The free throw, I think, swings back their way in a big way, which it didn't obviously against Toronto, driving a lot of people mad. Sometimes just get better calls. They win this game with LeVert going 4 of 14. Jared Allen was 6 of 13. Seeing him under 50% in a game is wild. Mitchell, as you know, Evan said earlier, was 12 of 29. Okoro was 1 of 4. Osman was 6 of 10, 3 of 5 from 3. He's been sensational to start the year. Dean Wade is 2 of 3 from 3, 3 of 4 from the floor. Kevin Love is 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. The last thing, Evan, I want to hit is about another Evan. That's Evan Mobley. I thought Sunday was a particularly bad, like just kind of a bad offensive game from him. Was pretty good defensively, but we're still seeing him early this year. Maybe, and I wrote about this in my takeaways if you're the Sword. Maybe this is still him getting acclimated, all of this stuff, but I thought he had some struggles in this game posting Denny Avdija and posting Kyle Kuzma. These are guys that are 6'9" forwards that are like, Avdija's listed at like 210, Kuzma's at like 220. Mobley still has like a strength issue, kind of posting these guys up and kind of making them pay for it. He's taller than them. So if he's at the elbow, he can shoot over them, and like you feel okay about that. But he still isn't like totally able to bully ball is not in his offensive vocabulary right now. He had the one time I think they directly posted him in the first half. He tried to step around Avdija and just like instead he couldn't like back him down. He had to kind of step around him, which was interesting.
Yeah. In the second half, he posted up Kyle Kuzma, and Kyle Kuzma tried to flop and sell. Mobley posting him up too hard, and thankfully, like the refs didn't bait on it.
This is where I was going.
But still, he couldn't.
But to his credit, like he scored on Kuzma the possession before that, and then he gets that call, which goes his way. Mm-hmm. I think as good as I think we think Mobley could be in is the first couple of games for him have been it hasn't been like the first 6 minutes of the Raptors game. He was great. I think since then it's been kind of like you can tell he's kind of just getting comfortable figuring stuff out. Yeah. And I think he's stronger than last year. I don't think he isn't like he is. There's still probably like another strength level maybe to come is kind of what I'm wondering right now.
I think he just looks timid right now. I think part of it is he doesn't have the benefit of a full preseason. Like his only preseason action was that fourth game against Orlando, which really wasn't much of a game to begin with. And he's learning how to play with Donovan Mitchell, and I think that's going to be just a hurdle for them in general. Like Bickerstaff touched on it during the preseason when I asked him about it. He's just like, I'm worried about, not worried, but like there's going to be a bit of a step back where the Cavs would like them to be offensively. And I mean, Donovan Mitchell said all the right things after this game, saying that he and Mobley are on the same page and still figuring things out. Like mentioned that Mobley's very effective in the pick and roll with Darius, and he wants to kind of get to that repertoire with him too. So there's ways the Cavs can kind of go about this and make it easier. And right now, it's just a bit of a trial by fire because, again, Jared Allen's not going to go for 20-plus points a night. But I'm surprised, but I'm not because he doesn't have a full preseason under his belt. But we're not, like, seeing a huge pop from Evan Mobley, and he just looks very timid out there on the floor. Like, we noticed it tonight. There was a situation where the defense was collapsing on Jared Allen, and he kicked it back out to Mobley, and Mobley kicked it right back to Jarrett. And so Jarrett was in the post and trying to, I think, work on Kristaps Porzingis at that point, but when Mobley was kind of more open for a jumper, he hesitated and instead kicked it down to a teammate, which is maybe just him trying to make the right play and not be selfish, and I think that's just something you have to learn over time is how to know when is the right time to take a shot and when is the right time not to take a shot, and I think Mobley's just kind of figuring that out, and I don't know. I'm not too overly concerned, but he, other than those 6 minutes against Toronto, he has looked a little tentative at times on the floor.
Yeah, it's Mobley, I think tentative and looking maybe just getting acclimated fully is the other thing. And then the other thing I want to see how it bounces back is what LeVert just kind of looks like once he sort of normalizes a little bit, because it has been such a, like, he's making like step back threes, and he threw like a great pass in overtime and then he aimed on Porzingis, like an incredible pass from LeVert, but he's like not making shot that he's normally kind of like, it's part of his bag. It's been like kind of an interesting, like, fun house, like inverse of what Karis LeVert is start to his season, at least offensively in my mind.
Yeah, it is. It is an interesting inverse, and I think, I don't know. It's just it's tricky to figure out like where the trajectory. Like, I think Evan Mobley is going to be the best player for the Cavs, but like he needs to kind of like keep leveling up internally. And like you said, like you see the flashes. It's just you gotta wait for him to kind of put the whole thing together. And I think also just 3 games in the season. I know you'll agree with me on this, but 3 games in the season, it's like premature to like crown Evan Mobley as like a failure in year 2 or not. Like, we all knew like this is going to be a process, especially because he didn't have much of an offensive repertoire last season. Like, he's trying to add a lot to it now, and now it's just him trying to find that comfort and familiarity in a new situation, and also where it's higher stake basketball too. Like, these games do have meaning early in the season as well as midway and at the end of the season too, where you don't want to maybe do too much because you don't want to result in your team losing.
Yes. All right. Let's wrap it up there, because we are into Monday as we're recording this. All right. I want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens, who on Twitter called Jetty Osman the MVP. Let him know what you think about that. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sport, the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, all of those places. Please do that. Evan's shaking his head no, but the answer is
lost, so.
Phillies. I'm taking the Phillies in 6. Don't know why, but I'm taking the Phillies in 6.
Heck yeah, man. Philadelphia needs another championship after the Birds won, so I just want to see the Fanatic just do Fanatic things. I want to see Gritty taste another championship.
The Abbott Elementary episode about the Phillies World Series would be 10 out of 10, and I want it just for that reason alone. On that note, I'm Chris. That's Evan. Be well.